I know. Your chickens are at it again. Can't hear. I can't hear. The farm next door has them, but sometimes they come into the garden, but I tend not to hear them so much, unless I'm actually out there. Hi, Lisa.
Hello.
So what are we meant to be looking at? I'm just trying to get it up. Is it this full draft?
Yes.
Yeah, with remaining feedback. Right, let's have a look.
Yeah, I was rather running out of names for files.
I'm not surprised.
So it gets longer and longer.
Names for files and times to organise people, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, Dennis, this was your idea, so feel free to take the reins.
Is it just us?
Yeah, I think it is just us, yeah.
Right, well, it's it was just immediately to just see whether people were happy of the redrafting by Valerie of 10.0 and myself of 10.1. So
other way around, but yes.
in particular to identify any good comments that we've failed to take on board.
Yeah.
Either to put them in here or to say they're good comments, but we can take them up somewhere else. So.
Yeah, I'm afraid I haven't had a chance to look at your stuff, but I'm happy to go through. In my bit in 10.1, I actually removed things which I thought were fairly incontrovertible. I removed altogether. I mean, I did, and just removed the comment. Possibly I should have left the comment in for somebody else to check whether they liked what I'd done, but I assumed, where it was things like getting rid of bullet points or something, I thought.
Yeah, I think we have between us got it all down to being continuous text, which is.
So, do we just want to go through these in order? And
yeah,
point at the beginning, which I'll leave you two to take us through. But just looking at the beginning, it's 10.0, and we need a sort of a decision on whether we're going to start with, at some point, with 0 for introductions, or some other papers have started from 1, and probably. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but
yeah.
I think we'd, maybe we should wait till we see all the drafts, Valerie. I mean, I think for me, the two alternatives are either to have it the way we've got at the moment, so the introduction and conclusions are numbered on the basis that people might want to cross-refer to them. So it is like 10.0 through to, it'll be 10.8 conclusions. The other minimalist approach, which I normally like, would be not to have a number on the introduction or the conclusions and just number the sections 1 to 7. I think it depends really how we're going to, if I think about it, that really depends on how the cross-references are going to be. If a cross-reference to this one is going to say policy section 7, then that's fine. If it's useful to, I think we were thinking that while we're developing, it's useful to be able to cross-reference to things like, just put in brackets, 10.7. But maybe when we get into the final format, the cross-references will be to something which is essentially a paper name, in which case you really only need to put section 7, don't you? So
I think it's useful.
I would be inclined to go back to the minimalist on that basis, really.
Well, yes, I mean, one can always say paper 10 introduction or paper 10 discussion rather than saying paper 10.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I don't think it's an issue. I think it's probably nicer if we try to make all the papers the same on that. But we won't necessarily have them all together to compare, You know,
No, but I think
we
that-
have to take an executive decision, I think.
Are we not going to? But I think, yeah, but I think we should. I think it's an editorial decision, and I think
Okay.
I think it would be helpful to, in a week or two, we should have pretty full drafts, hopefully, of 6 or 7 of the papers, I'd have thought. So we could just look at them and just, and I think, I propose solutions A and B. There might be others, but if we looked at the 6 or 7 papers and say, are they using A? Are they using B?
Actually, I think
if we've got a preferred one, is it going to really annoy the authors here to ask them to change to A? And hopefully, I shouldn't have thought they'd be annoyed as long as we have an explanation. Just say.
I think there's a C though, because your version of recalling this 10.0 originally, because you really were thinking of it as being unnumbered in your preferred sort of scenario. So we dropped that 10.0 and it would just be called introduction. But of course, if we wanted all the sections to be numbered, then would this be 10.1, i.e. would one start from 1 rather than counting from 0? So that's a sort of a little... Anyway, look, this is we don't want to spend all our hour discussing how we number sections. So I think we should get on to something more meaningful. So what about these comments? What do we need? Dennis, you did this section, so probably you should.
Yes, I think. First of all, there's Hans's long comment about how unusual it was, and the modelling was so much at the top of everyone's minds, and so on and so forth. So I feel I've reflected that in sort of the way I've opened this, and it seems to me it's a. I didn't want to make the point at too much length here because I think it's something we're going to have to say in the introduction. The overall introduction to the volume. So
we need to.
So I think we need to make the point prominently in both places, but not of excessive length.
I think that's fine. Have you got a little sort of file where you're keeping things that we need to mention in the introduction? Because
I've got 2 sets of notes called introduction, numbered of course 0.0, called introduction and introduction take 2. So when I've
so does this point
so some fairly early stage, I'm going to try and put those into a single thing and start trying to turn it into words.
So anyway, this point of Hans's just needs to be moved into that collection of things so that we remember to make the point, I guess.
It's definitely there as an important point to be made.
So should we take this one out then?
No. It's
No. I mean the.
Oh, you mean take Hans's comment out? I think
take the comment out now so that we've cleaned it up because we feel we've addressed that comment.
Yeah, I think so. Yes,
Good.
I mean
right.
Yeah. And we've got its text. We've got its text saved separately, haven't we? So
yeah. I thought the aim was here to try and clean up all these, so we ended up with a
yes. I mean, I think
without the comments in anymore. So.
Yeah, what I'm hoping is we're nearly at the stage where we could remove all the comments to the section 0.
Exactly. So we can. So Lisa, are you in charge of removing comments?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
If you can remove that one, what about the next one? Well, I agree about. I think that one can be taken out too, can't it?
Then there are the ones about.
Because we've taken out UK out of that next paragraph, so I think that one's all right.
There's a comment of, I think there's some little comments by Ben which I think have been taken into account. There's one of Hannah Clapham about
Hang on a minute.
confusion in
Are you,
cross-referencing.
are you saying that the ones from Ben can go?
I think so.
I mean, I don't think we need to define a near pandemic, do we?
Well, no, I mean, the way in which I thought I took that into account was that I referred to SARS as just an epidemic. I suppose I could have called it a near pandemic, but
Sorry, where have you referred?
so in the so where are we? We're in the paragraph that begins.
Oh yes, right at the beginning.
Um,
Right at the beginning, a sequence of epidemics, including SARS, pandemic flu, and Ebola.
yeah.
Yes,
Well,
and also
then-
again in the
then-
fourth paragraph.
Yes, also in the fourth
Oh, yeah.
paragraph,
Yeah.
where I said if we look back at the pandemics and near pandemics of recent years, and then I've referred to SARS specifically as an epidemic, rather than giving it full pandemic status, so as to
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I hope that what the reader would pick up from that is that one doesn't want to be too pernickety about language, but there's obviously, one tends to reserve pandemic for the worst.
Sure.
Um,
Okay.
so I think I've taken Ben's.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so I'll delete that comment.
wanted
Although
not-
Dennis, do we want to go? What about Hans's comment above?
I think that comment of Hans, you mean the specific
Countries.
I think that's okay. I think that can go. I think
Yeah.
We've done that. We took it. There was a reference to UK previously. We took out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, and then the next one.
the next Ben one was multiple examples. I mean, a lot of the papers are starting with similar lists of,
Yeah, and I think I've done a little bit of.
I think it's
I've done a
okay.
little bit of listing by mentioning SARS, pandemic, flu, and Ebola, but and
I don't
I
think
think
we
when we come to putting references in, there are almost certainly going to be ones which will talk about that will talk about the whole sort of sequence of everything since since at least Spanish flu of 1918, and probably have nice diagrams with I mean, there's a nice diagram I've got saved. I'm not quite sure which of those it came from, which has got shows the sort of major outbreak sort of rather building up in frequency as you come nearer the present. So I think we perhaps should make sure that our references. So
it'll be in the overall introduction too, of
Yeah.
course, all this stuff. So
I don't think that's going to get lost, really. I think we could probably.
I think that one can go. And what about while we're at it, what about the next one?
Which one? Which are you calling the next one?
Sorry, the UK preparedness exercise. You sort of
Well,
said.
that could be.
Do we want to give a reference
I
to?
think that could be an example of. You could add that to the assessments made if you wanted as an example of a. I mean, the two I put up. Have you got that, by the way? Because I just edited that just now. I thought I'd edited it yesterday, but it seemed to have not got saved.
I don't know what you.
So in this paragraph,
WHO 2011 and GHI 2019.
yeah. So that was, I couldn't find an authoritative general, WHO one since 2011, but there's, and I'm not quite sure if GHI is the right
What is GHI, Dennis?
It's the Global Health Index.
Oh, okay.
It was the one that, and it does, I mean, it is referred to in the WHO Independent Panel report, which I really think is very, very good, the one that came out a month or so ago.
Yeah, no, that's good.
It talks about the same kind of thing, about countries not doing as well as expected, and it refers to assessments which were made, and it includes this. It's got a slightly odd status, and it's not a. It's obviously published by these institutions that did it, which are something which is Johns Hopkins and the Global Nuclear, the Nuclear Threat Initiative, and other supporters. But it seems to be, yeah, it seems to command international respect. And I think the fact it came out in October 2019 is sort of, you know,
Apt.
is just so sort of, you know, I mean, poor people. I mean, they couldn't have more egg on their face, really, though. You know,
So, I mean, people.
and again, sorry, and the independent panel puts it pretty squarely as being a failure of politicians and leadership, as being the, you know, the explanation as to why these assessments turned out to be so failed to indicate which countries would really have difficulty. I mean, I was seeing the oh dear, the Channel 4 News had a thing on yesterday on the being the year since the
Okay, right.
since the and and they had this government minister talking about about the Cheltenham race meeting and saying it's too early to stop that kind of thing. And I thought, you know, you do not understand, do you? When a problem is going to be 10 times as big if you leave it for 2 weeks, it's not too early to deal with it. Oh dear. Anyway, but
Anyway, yes.
we don't want to go into there's so much.
So we think that those two references cover this list basically. You know, there was which had the UK and the US as being amongst the most prepared.
And the point is, if you want, you know, if you want assessments and you want the kind of ways in which people do assessments, I mean the GHI one has got, you know, it's got a page on each of 180 countries, you know, explaining how they scored them on their all their various criteria. Yeah. And the WHO one was the major operation they did in response to the sort of flu pandemic that didn't happen in 2009. So I think they're
yeah. Okay. So should we delete that comment? Preparedness exercise.
Yeah. So yeah. And
yeah.
Apologies. Good.
Okay. Graham's comment next.
I think I've got that on my list as something put in somewhere.
Did we not move this one?
Trying to know what I did about that. I thought I'd I think actually it probably needs to be made here. Just maybe I haven't made it. I mean, it's the point. I suppose it's basically it's the point that the scientists and the politicians tend to look at the world from different ways.
Yeah.
I mean, it's rather like, you know, I mean, whatever it is, let's say bats or something sense the world in a completely different way from the one we do. It's rather as though we're
may be offended if you call them bats,
and the politicians are using echolocation or something.
Yes, I mean, it's a sort of general point about communication, really, isn't it? I suppose.
I think we ought to save Graham's point in the. I think what I'm thinking is possibly, I don't know if you want to do this, Lisa, or I could try and do it. Is if we saved in a separate little file some sort of best comments. If we had a sort of best comments file, and we kept, say, the whole of Hans's thing in that, and the whole of this one of Graham's, and so if we just kept one,
we probably have got them as their responses. What
I was thinking was we might synthesize those into the good comments that we feel we haven't, that aren't fully reflected in the text yet.
Well, we
If
could
it's
just add it.
comment and it's now absorbed into the text, then we can.
I think that one really, if we wanted to say anything more, it could possibly be in the communication bit. But it,
Yes.
and
So
put just sort of emphasize the different perspectives that people.
Yeah, no, I think
from.
that'd be a good place to.
And you know, a sentence, it may already be there, but a sentence down in 10.4 somewhere.
yeah, so I have copied the comment to 10.4.
Actually, you could put something in this paragraph, isn't it? We've got the paragraph that begins next, decisions on policy need to weigh up ... You could maybe towards the end of that, just trying to think, how would you work that in? Because we talk about communications, you know, you could add something to say that you could say communications between scientists and politicians are clearly of key importance and can be difficult because of their different perspectives on the world, or something like that. You know,
I want to put that as a sentence at the start of the. We've got a paragraph that.
Well, we got the uncertainty, isn't it?
That's key policy challenge is. So it could, what you just said could go at the beginning before that, you know, that saying a challenge is not, I mean, so this one is talking about uncertainty, but there's the challenge of communicating in exchanges between modelers and politicians in general because of the different perspectives from which they come. And then a key challenge is communicating uncertainty. I mean, one could do something like that.
Yeah.
If you, I don't know, if anybody thinks.
Yeah.
Well, how about you could start that off with, so you could start off the key policy paragraph with something like communications between modelers and politicians are difficult because of their different perspectives on the world, and then have a particular challenge is the need to communicate uncertainty. ...
Yeah, I think that will be fine.
Can you put that in?
I have typed it in.
Good.
Right, I was resisting the temptation.
Great. I was leaving. Yes, I'm trying to avoid trying to do anything myself, so it's leaving to you. But at the moment, the words "only thee" are run together.
Yes. So
yeah, I've just put a space in. So
you put the space in. Good.
Yeah, I've done that.
Trivial. Right. Okay.
And then, so in my communication section, do you think I'll need to say more about Graham's point there?
Yes.
well, possibly
A little more. Yeah.
I think it would
A little more. Leave it up to you. See if you
if
can.
it's not there already.
Yeah. So I have duplicated the comment to communication, so I'm going to delete it from here. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
So we got Frank's comment.
No, we've got one from Hannah first.
Was that another cross-referencing one I mentioned?
Is that the 10 point, the thing about 10.1?
Yeah.
That was.
Yeah.
I think we just need to say section 1 of this paper or something, or actually just section rather than putting the, you know, the little symbol in. Maybe if we just said section,
okay,
it would be pretty obvious that we're talking about this paper. I would have thought. I mean, or say we discussed the problems of long-term planning below in sections 10.1.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
10.1 below or something. Then it's fairly obvious.
Yeah, if you do that for the first one, then the
and then yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So next we have Frank's comment. think. Yeah.
Well, one could turn that sentence round the other way and say health and economic outcomes are often considered in isolation. So it would just remove the word models and just say, you know, those things are considered.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're not saying that the models, we're not saying how it should be done. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I like that.
Really good.
And we've got Graham again. But I think that, I don't know that we need to do anything about that, do we? He's just saying he agrees.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
And ditto the next one, Ben's one, next one, is he?
Yeah.
But then there's one about Graham's one about does this clash? Well, I think no, it doesn't. I think we're trying to say you need a range of models and you need to try and integrate them as far as you can.
On an integrated approach, since we've removed the word models from that earlier paragraph, the integrated approach doesn't necessarily imply they've all got to be incorporated in a single model, you know, in a very detailed model, does it? I mean, it just means that people need to weigh up everything.
So well, I think we could perhaps say we've taken that into account, really.
I think we could say we got rid of all those.
It's really good.
Marvelous.
Right.
And then we can go on to, gosh, we've got a whole page and a bit without any comments now.
Very refreshing.
Yes, I'm just.
So what's your?
Sorry, I'm just, we've still got, oh no, I've got to get, I was just trying to sort out what the latest version is, but I think
sorry, yes.
No, it's all right. It hadn't updated. Okay, so, well, as I say in here, I did take some things out. So the first comment was this one of Ben's about a reference, suggesting a reference to Andy and Christina, but I think that will be covered in the earlier papers. So I think we can get rid of that and just put the cross-reference in there. The next one, the trouble with some of these bits in this section was that, you know, we did that collective brain dump thing way back at the beginning where we all slung points in and then Lisa reorganized them into sections.
Yeah.
I don't know who wrote this. I don't know much about surveillance systems, so I can't say what's lacking, if anything, about the present system. So I'm not sure whether we can say any more about that.
Do we know any of the other papers that might have touched on surveillance?
The obvious one would be Andy's one, but we don't have a draft of that. So, I mean, I did have a quick look back at the original, you know, that the two-way table that we produced, that Dennis produced, that had some of these things in, but that was just sort of bullet points. I think there's probably enough here which really, because there's bound to be shortcomings because, you know, a lack of international coverage and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I feel we've said enough.
I thought so. I mean, I did try to reword it slightly, but I didn't feel like very expert. Then the next one, oh, this paragraph about data. I mean, it's the important thing, but I don't think it belongs here at all. So I'd be inclined to take that whole paragraph down to the data section where it's probably already covered. I don't know what you both think. I mean, this is.
Yeah, we do have a paragraph like this.
Yeah, I mean, this section is on long-term thinking and preparedness. So I don't think that the uses to which the data are going to be put is so relevant here, given that we've got a section later.
Yeah, I think I'd be inclined to take it out if you're happy with that.
Yeah, I think it should go as long as the points are made somewhere. I mean, the only
they have been made, yeah.
Extra thing that I put into there, which wasn't originally there, the main thing was that Graham had talked about linkage. We had data cleaning and anonymization, but not linkage. So we would want to make sure that linkage is mentioned in 10.4.
Okay.
I think because there was a comment of his which I removed because I put linkage in there.
Yeah. So I'll just add a comment at 10.4. Okay, so I've copied the paragraph to 10.4, and that'll remind me to write something about linkage later.
I mean, it may be there, or it may not be there at all at the moment.
I don't mention the word linkage, but
no, but I'm
sure I can just add it in.
I mean, anonymization isn't there either, is it? So it really goes with the whole question about data.
Yeah. Okay.
It actually goes much more with the data paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, for the moment, we'll boot that down to 10.4.
Yeah. It has been booted.
Right.
And then,
of course, Ben's 2 comments go with that paragraph about what sort of data. Again, I don't think that his comments are really relevant here because he's making them without having seen the other papers and so on. So I think that probably can all go. What we probably need the next one was just to refer to the estimation paper on expert judgment, probably.
I just put chapter 7 in brackets like you've done.
Yeah.
Italics, I think you use.
And then, the next one was just one needs to watch abbreviations, and I did check, but that's something really an editorial thing for right at the end to make things sure they're defined when first used. And at the moment, that's fine because NPIs appears in the introduction, and we've discussed a bit about numbering, so that all goes.
Storming ahead.
Yeah, good, isn't it?
It'd be good to have time to make myself a coffee before the 11 o'clock.
Yes, quite. I'm hoping for that too.
It's not at 11.
Oh, is it not?
Yeah, I was going to ask if either of you wanted to come. The one with Duncan and Kerry-Ann. So they couldn't make today.
Oh, okay. All right.
Kerry Ann has replied to say, I gave some other options, and Kerry Ann has replied to say that she can make most of them, just waiting for Duncan to hear back.
Okay, so all right, so we've
yeah.
got a little gap. That's good.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure whether you wanted us to come anyway. So, but
it's up to you.
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, if it was following on from this, I might have stayed on. But anyway,
yeah.
Lots of time for coffee now, Jenny.
Yeah.
Let us know when it's fixed.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. It might likely be Monday, because I think Duncan said he had a bit of a hectic week this week, and I haven't heard back from yet. So probably. Yeah.
Yes. So going on with the advanced preparation paragraph. Again, this was something that I think came from, well, either Duncan or Chris, I suspect, but the stuff about principled manner. I don't know what, Ben says need to be more explicit about what this means in practice. I don't really know what they had in mind when they wrote that. I mean, I assume that whoever it was means principled in the sense of following sort of established principles rather than being done on an ad hoc basis, seat of the pants, whatever anybody thinks of in a rush. So that, that these things should be thought about, and the strategy should be thought in advance. But I don't know, that's just a guess. What do you think, Lisa?
I mean, that would be my guess as well. Do we want to leave that one in and ask them? Or do we think it's not?
We can.
Well, so far we haven't left any.
We could just change it, saying,
yeah, that's true.
feed through into policy following established principles or something.
Yes, that sounds better. Yeah, that's much clearer.
That would be my interpretation, and you say probably yours too. And hopefully everybody will read through these things at the end.
Yeah.
I think it's better not to leave too many questions if we can avoid them. Okay, let's that. Now, yes, now Graham in the next bit, he queried this. And it was, his bit was it's linked to the word cost effective. Modelling can contribute to ensuring that preparedness is both well, I put in flexible, it just said cost effective before. And he said, and robust. Part of the problem was preparedness was that it was too efficient and was robust to alternatives. And do you think he actually meant that? Because if he did, I didn't understand it. And I wondered whether it was meant to be was not robust to alternatives.
Well,
and that's why on the assumption that he meant wasn't robust, I put flexible in on the.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right there, but I was thinking maybe using robust in sort of slightly different sense of the word, meaning meaning sort of can't be changed.
Yeah, maybe. I tend to think of it alternatively as meaning, it still applies even if you have slightly alternative situations.
Yeah.
Anyway,
do
you think if we put flexible and cost effective, that would cope with that one?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, it's good.
And then we just had Ben. We've said we need broad interdisciplinary networks, and I think we could just cross-reference to chapter 6, where we talk much more about the need to integrate different perspectives and to have established networks of people who know each other. I think the point is here.
So in the modelling paper?
I thought it was in modelling. Have I got the wrong one? I thought it was to do with having capacity, having good links between modelers.
Oh yes, yeah.
It's communication again a bit, but having good established links so that these can be brought into play. by people who know and trust each other. It's the usual point again that Frank was talking about the other day, but more specifically within the modelling groups rather than between the politicians.
Yeah.
So we can amplify that a bit if you think, as to why we think we want to maintain broad disciplinary networks. I mean, we could say something like that can be, I don't know.
I think we might end up touching on that in our new 10.7 and or the conclusion,
Okay,
incorporating Frank's comments from Friday.
right. So perhaps,
Um,
we just need a reference here rather than 6 to whichever.
maybe
section it is.
10.7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, do that. And then 10.7, if appropriate, can always refer to, because where you're saying a bit more, can itself refer out to other challenges papers
Yeah.
if necessary.
Send people on a treasure hunt.
Good.
Excellent.
Now where have we got to? Graham again. Oh, now this is all really rather difficult, this last bit, because we've got two completely poles opposite opinions from Frank and Graham.
Although I do think that so Frank makes the point that basic training is likely to be useful for up and coming members of government, which I think Graham probably wouldn't disagree with.
Yes.
I think Graham's talking more about established.
That's right. So I reworded
Government.
it a bit. I think I put the aspiring in
Yes,
there
yeah.
to sort of, you know, want to make it more explicit, but I just put that in. Yeah.
Do we need to say aspiring politicians and members of government, or?
Well, I don't know how we train aspiring politicians particularly, whereas the aspiring
I see. Yes.
The aspiring members of government one can do something with. With
the politicians, they're
yeah.
We don't meet them until they're politicians.
The way you've got, I mean, you possibly need routes like the all parliamentary groups of MPs.
Well, that's right. I mean, this training that I mentioned, sorry, the training that I mentioned the other day that the RSS did for MPs was through those groups.
Yeah.
I
sort of think that works quite well because.
Well, it did in principle, except nobody came.
Well, yeah.
Well, it varied. Sometimes they did, and sometimes they didn't. Depending what. I mean, the trouble is, MPs are very busy, and it depends what you timetable these sessions well in advance, and then it clashes with something else. So do we need to say anything else? I mean, I wondered whether
we should obviously,
I mean, Graham thought he wanted teams of modelers embedded within departments, and Frank was very anti that because he said they got ossified.
I'm inclined to say that Frank's opinion might be stronger.
Yeah.
Well, yes, in the sense
because he has the other viewpoint.
He does. I mean, in the sense of having been on the inside rather than see it from the outside. Yeah. So I think probably we leave it. As I say, I've added aspiring to try to address
I mean, I think, yeah, yes,
Frank's point.
yes. I mean, I think the point is you don't actually want the modelers in the government department, do you? What you want is civil servants who sort of are have the who are in a good position, which I suppose means that if they say something, the ministers will listen to them, and who have contact with, hopefully, a sort of like a rotating world of expertise on their subject, so that so they know which modelers, that they have a good idea of which modelers to go to, and if there are modelers who take very different approaches, that there's someone in the civil service who's sort of aware of that there are, someone who sort of understands the scientific world without trying to do their own modeling. I think what Graham is hinting at is if they decide to do their own modeling, so there's the department of whichever's official way of how to model a pandemic, so that's very dangerous, because you might make a choice that was good for now to start off with, but there's grave danger you'll be fossilized, and if the pandemic actually comes along in 10 years' time, you'll be stuck in a groove. So, but I think it's
yeah.
So it's kind of way of making Churchill's idea of scientific advice being available on tap.
So this last little sentence bit about the basic training, I'm still not quite sure. I mean, there's this sort of distinction between the MP, the ministers, the MPs and ministers, whom I tend to think of as government, in inverted commas, and the civil servants. And one really would like to have the civil servants having some training as well as the politicians.
I think what you're trying to get is that the civil servants and the politicians should have awareness of the scientific issues and good contacts in the scientific, in the modelling world, really, isn't it? That,
yes, but how does the awareness? I mean, Graham, I think it was saying, half a day of awareness training once every 2 years is not going to get you far.
Yeah.
So what do you think can we usefully improve this little bit here? I mean, I was sort of thinking, I suppose, that the government departments were the other policymakers when I wrote it, that they were, but maybe one should say explicitly civil servants.
I don't know if in your sentence before, if we want to include government and politicians there as well.
Yes, I mean, I guess I had in mind very much the UK or English, whatever, Parliament. So yes, perhaps make this a bit more, make sure that it's written with a sort of international perspective.
No, sorry, I meant for the sentence before, to devise effective MPIs, it is essential to establish good links between epidemiologists, behavioral science and economics. Do we also want politicians and inspiring members of government in that list? And then further, we say basic training would be useful. But I think one of our key points is establishing good links,
Yeah.
not just within the
Well, it's both,
science.
isn't it? That sentence, I mean, the penultimate sentence there was very much aimed at joining the behavioral scientists and the economists with the epidemic modelers. So maybe it needs to be a separate sentence, and or a separate clause, and also between them and the policymakers.
And then I think you've probably covered
in government departments, and could we do something like that?
Yeah.
I think
we added that to that.
Yeah. And I suppose something like to keep them aware of issues and and issues and policy and policy options, isn't it? So say good communication is also essential between scientists and policymakers, both politicians and civil servants, to keep them aware of major issues and response options, or scientific scientifically based options or something.
Late now, but we should be doing this with a shared screen so that we can.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
I just suddenly thought, when we're sort of.
Yes, we should.
It would have been a sensible way to do it. So what have we, have you tried to put in any of that, please? Oh, okay.
No.
Could you make that a bit bigger?
Yes, sorry. Is that clearer for you?
That's great.
Yeah.
No, that's fine, thanks.
I'm wondering if we can just write.
Do you think we could replace basic training with just good communication? I know it's a bit weaker, but I think we're. Well, you've got communication at the end, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, where Lisa's got the cursor, if one put a comma there and then another phrase, and also between, I can't remember.
I was thinking we could just say, and further establish links with government or something like that.
Also with policymakers in civil, I mean, government and civil. I don't know what.
Could just leave us in government, really. Do you think?
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, that does cover the civil service, doesn't it? I mean, the government, it does cover government departments. So, and that would cover the ministers as well. So I think that would be all right. And then basic training for.
Maybe we could put could also help, slightly weaker statement.
Well, I think.
I mean, there are 2 points here, I think, that we're trying to make and probably got slightly jumbled, but and also thinking about the conversation with Frank. There's the communication. I mean, there's establishing the networks and having people that have a general understanding of modelling for its own sake. And there's also the specific point about communicating results and uncertainties, where they're being given feedback from SPI-M and SAGE and so on, and need to understand a bit more about the technicalities. So there's the sort of point about understanding enough to know who to ask, and there's the understanding what the answers when they're given them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, I think the Graham's point about, you know, training, it might be out of date. It's really, I mean, the one essential is that when a crisis occurs, is that the politicians and civil servants should take it seriously and know who to ask. I mean, I think,
Yeah,
you know, I think you can probably tell politicians as much as they're going to know and understand about, you know, a whole new field like epidemic modelling in 24 hours. You know, if it's at the top of their priorities and they really, really want to understand, which if it's a crisis they will, you know, and if you've managed obviously to, you don't want them to miss a crisis, that's obviously a possibility. But if there's just someone in the civil service who can say, Minister, I think we've got a potential crisis on our hands. I think you've really got to get up to speed on all this coronavirus stuff. You know, and the civil service then needs to have contacts which will allow them to get a number of people, you know, the sort of Frank Kellys and Graham Medleys of this world, into a room with and say, look, you've got 2 hours, you explain the scientific issues to the minister. And at the end of that, you know, a minister is probably very accustomed to absorbing that kind of stuff. So I think,
excuse me, somebody at the door.
it's a question of making sure there's a sort of, that people, that
It's next door.
Yeah, sorry,
I'm not expecting anything actually.
Oh,
but
sorry about that.
okay, no worries. Thank you. Sorry, postman.
So
The next door, I might add. Anyway, sorry, have we got a paragraph?
No,
Carry on, Dennis.
I was just saying that the essentials, the essential really is that there's it's that there's civil servants or politicians who will recognise that there's a crisis and will sort of know who to ask. And I suppose, you know, having an updated national risk register is probably part of that process, isn't it? Because the but then, you know, pandemics were sitting right at the top of the national risk register in the UK, and still things didn't happen.
I think, well, yeah, I mean, it's obviously important. We're now concentrating on thinking the ministers need to understand, which clearly they do. But also, I think when it comes to, I don't know, all these policy briefings and things that we get at times every day, a lot of the material for that is produced by people in departments, and it's not always done terribly well. You know, when you think about all the graphs and debacles over some of that stuff. So there is a need sort of further down in the civil service departments, not just at the top level, I think. But I don't know what you can do about that, really.
Well, I suppose in a way, isn't that what sort of scientific advisors are supposed to do, isn't it? That
I think the scientific advisors, to a large extent, provide the links, don't they? They provide the who to ask.
Well, that's which I think is pretty key, really.
I mean, they do sometimes.
Hopefully, we've got a good, hopefully, if you've got a good scientific advisor, they're every now and then advising the top civil servants and the minister what kind of things to look out for, and then when and if they occur, to put them in touch with.
Yeah.
If they need.
I was just going to suggest that we could add something that said that penultimate sentence. We could say, the role of the CSA is paramount, but of course we're trying to write this for a non-UK audience, so I think I'll go back and I think we just have to keep it fairly vague on the sort of government structures. Just say, or unless one wanted to say, to give it as an example, the role of the CSA in the UK.
Maybe we should be acknowledging. Maybe we should be acknowledging the sort of dilemma that Graham and Frank's different comments make, which is that say, it is key to get good scientific advice into governments at the right point in time, and this, you can say this does pose a challenge, because of the dangers of getting fixed in because on the one hand they want to have the expertise, but on the other hand it needs to be adaptable and changing, and there must be some more concise way of saying that you see what I mean, that the dilemma of having expertise in government is you get your expertise in, and it looks terrific at the time, but 10 years later they're all out of date and you really ought to have changed some of them. But it's
we could just say it needs to be flexible and up to date.
Yes.
Or flexible and timely, or
yeah. So
it's not
I don't
timely,
think. Yeah. So I think something about a key challenge is to get good in. Well, we could combine those actually, Valerie. But something like it's a key challenge to get good scientific advice into government in a flexible and timely way. It's not terribly good, but I think that was something along those lines would cover. And I think we could leave out the thorny idea of training, because training could obviously be one way of getting scientific advice into government, but we don't have to come up with an opinion on it.
Well, we could say,
I think to come up with an opinion on it, we might have to say quite a lot about what kind of training we thought would be good and what kind we thought would be token.
That's true.
would one want to give an example there of a way of doing that? Or
Probably, yes.
I mean, it varies around the world, doesn't it? When you think about the Audrey, whatever her name was,
Tang?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, their setup was so different, where they'd got a sort of the minister who making the decisions with an epidemiologist, and it was a very different setup.
But presumably that doesn't happen for any other type of disaster, because she's only an epidemiologist. She's not.
Yes, that's true.
A nuclear expert or tsunamis or anything. So I wonder how they would fare in other crises.
Who knows?
Interesting.
Yes.
Anyway,
Anyway, that's
off topic.
it is rather. I mean, one could say that in the UK, the role of chief scientific advisor, or in the UK, the chief scientific advisors play an important part in this or something.
Yeah.
But
Did you say?
play an important part in this, I think it said, but
yeah. We could then say basic training, blah, 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 could also help.
Yeah.
Because that incorporates Frank's comment. Maybe if I just put also.
Yes. So the penultimate part now talks about sort of getting the advice in, but it doesn't say anything about the people given the advice being able to understand it. So we do need this final sentence or something like it, don't we? On
Yeah.
understanding.
I think yeah, with both of those
so
sections, covers both.
I mean, we could say would also, or could also, whichever you've decided on, help to improve understanding and enable.
Yeah.
Does that? Now, we're not using government to mean civil servant as well as politicians. So perhaps the aspiring members isn't the right thing after all. But, maybe do we just say for those in government? I mean, rather than politicians and aspiring members of.
Could we just say for aspiring members of government? Or those aspiring to government?
But you might say those who are already, the civil servants in the departments are already in government.
Right, okay.
So I'm not sure. Maybe rather, would we say the use rather than the application of models? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Basic training on the use of models for I mean, we could just say basic training on the use of models for those in government. I'm not sure who the other I think this has all got a bit jumbled now, hasn't it, in terms of who we're actually trying to get at. I
Yeah.
think perhaps we ought to take that bit out and start that bit from politicians to policymakers and put in what we think we want there.
Could we say junior members rather than aspiring? Would that help?
Yeah.
Then we don't have to be specific about their role, I guess. That might be an easy way. For those in junior positions of government, does that include everybody?
I think the point that Frank was making the distinction between people who are MPs, sort of, but not ministers.
Yeah.
So they are not in government. I assume the government is the ministers plus the departments. Is that right?
I see. Yeah.
And I think he was saying that you know, he was talking about the aspiring, the politicians, the MPs who are aspiring to be government ministers next time round or something. But that's very much our system. So maybe we can stand back a bit and say, for those in maybe basic training, for those in government departments. Oh dear, we're getting ourselves really knotted up on a silly sentence.
We could just write something for now and then maybe we'll think of something better in a few days.
We could just say basic training of members of government departments and other policy and politicians could be useful to help to improve understanding and better communication. Something like that. I'm not sure that's any better, really. Who do we actually want to have the training?
Frank thinks incoming.
We could just say, completely bat it out of the water and say for those involved.
Yeah. Yeah, and then if we say could, then we also acknowledge that it might not necessarily be helpful, which doesn't contradict.
Yeah.
Okay, shall we just put that for now? If we think of something better, then those involved. Yeah, I think that's a good.
Perhaps the point is that we're talking about preparedness and we're talking about this to be in advance, isn't it? Things that need to be done in advance. The training needs to be in advance, not at the last minute. So so maybe we should say, rather than basic, should we say general training on the use of models? Would that be any better? And then for all those likely to be involved.
Yeah.
So that
For all, did you want all?
I did say all, but I don't know.
Should we leave it like that?
Yes. After those, try putting in those civil servants and politicians and see if we like it. Any good?
Yeah, I like that.
Should we leave it like that for now? I think we've
Yeah.
agonized over it long enough. I mean, and get when somebody reads the whole thing, hopefully.
Yeah. Well done.
Okay.
So have we oh gosh, we've gone on a bit.
Oh dear.
That last
I
bit.
think that's it though. Oh, and the conclusion, but we haven't really written the
Got to
conclusion anyway.
Have we?
Really, no. Just see if these could be things that we could leave. I've just copied in Chris's overall comment here.
What, Chris Dye? Are you talking about?
Sorry. Yeah, so I just copied in Chris's overall comment about
what and yes.
and how, yeah, because I thought we'd want to touch on that in the conclusion. And then we've got a comment from Hans and Frank and Chris. So 4 comments, but we could leave those.
Yeah, I think we need to go and have a.
Yeah.
I could have a go at trying to work the comments in, if you like.
Yeah.
That would be great. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I think not just now. I think.
Yeah. Okay, should we leave it there for today?
I think so. Yes.
We have made a bit of progress, haven't we?
I think we've made a lot of progress.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
So we know, and also the have we still got the sort of comments, overall comments at the head of the chapter still? What do we do about those?
Well, one of them, the one from Chris Dye, is certainly, we just mentioned that it's in the discussion at the end.
So that should be moved to being something to take into the discussion.
And and the second one, yes, you put a bit in 10.0, didn't you?
Yeah.
The sentence. So I think those can.
So we can.
So
Yeah. Okay. So I can remove the general comments page then. Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
So
We're getting there.
yeah. And so which ones is this afternoon?
It is 5, 6, and 7. So understanding competing factors, implementing change, and technical model challenges.
Okay.
So
Okay, that's good.
Thank you then.
Okay.
I'd like to see you then. Try to. Okay.
Thanks.
don't feel forced to. We also have Kira coming along.
Yes, because she's well, actually, she did say something about she might try and turn up at 11, but she hasn't turned up at 11.
No.
Presumably, it would have been on the same link. So
Yeah, I did check. I didn't receive an email from anyone, so we'll be okay. And I'll send around the time when that's set
great.
for that one.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
good.
thanks.
So that one won't be done before Friday. When do we next meet?
Tuesday.
Oh no, Tuesdays. That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry. Friday's modelling. Don't mind me. I'm just getting.
And you're
things going on.
you're going to be there at 3 to sort of guarantee continuity in editing, Lisa, are you?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll go
She's
to all of
doing
them.
all of them
Yeah.
very nobly.
Yeah.
So
Okay, thanks.
Well, also my 2 sections are in the other 2, one in each. So
Oh, right, okay.
yeah. Dual purpose.
very good. Well, I hope
Yeah.
it's all proving
Nice
useful
try.
for the PhD as well. So
Yeah, enormously. Yeah,
something
Yeah.
useful
Yeah.
out of it.
definitely.
Jolly good.
Okay.
All
Well,
right.
see you on Friday, if not before or later.
Yeah,
Yep.
right. Thanks. Bye. Bye. Bye.